You're listening to the Every Student, Everyday podcast with me, Jim Franchini, Superintendent of the Averill Park Central School District. Welcome to this episode of the Every Student, Everyday podcast. As we typically do every year around this time, we focus one of our episodes on the upcoming budget vote. So this podcast will drop on May 12th, which is 8 days before the vote. And we thought it'd be a good time to have on as our guests our two assistant superintendents. One who handles the teaching and learning side, the other who handles the business side, just to talk about what is in this budget and what are some of the things to look for as you're making a decision about your vote. So first of all, thank you for joining us and welcome to the podcast. We'll let you introduce yourselves. Matt, do you want to go first?
Sure. Thanks for having me. My name is Matt Hladun, and I am the Assistant Superintendent for Teaching and Learning.
And Carrie.
Hey, I'm Carrie Nyc-Chevrier. I'm the Assistant Superintendent for Business.
Great. Thank you again to both of you. And Carrie, we're going to stay with you. Can you give our listeners just a quick rundown of the 25-26 school budget that they're going to be voting on the 20th? What are some of the sort of financial numbers to be looking for or to be focused on as they go to the polls?
Sure. So when we started this year's budget process, when we do what we call a modified rollover, we look to see what our annual increases are year to year. We started with a $1.6 million deficit. So that was what we were looking to close with this year's budget. The past couple of years, we've also have had over $1 million deficits. So it's a couple of years in a row we've started that point. This year, fortunately enough, though, we got a little bit more in foundation aid from the state, which helped us close that gap. But we also did have to make reductions as well. This year's budget, our total is $69.5 million. And we're going out with a tax cap of 2.41%, which is at the cap. We also had a high number of retirees this year, most of which we are replacing, but that also does help in terms of closing that gap a little bit. So last year, we increased the district's reliance on fund balance and reserves, and we kept that number the same going into this year's budget in order to maintain those programs.
Excellent. Thank you. What do we have the budget to budget increase as well from one year to the next?
4.34%.
And as you said, at the tax cap at 241, the district has gone out at or below the tax cap every year since that law became in effect. So we've kept up that of trying to make sure that we stay within our means and being good stewards of the monies and respecting the fact that we are asking our community to support the schools. We understand that money is real money and is significant. So we do try to be very cognizant of that and aware of that as we develop the budget. There are some things, Carrie, that are out of our control. And in this year in particular, I know those were major cost drivers. Can you talk to folks a little bit about that part of the budget? Not everything is really within our realm of or sphere of control.
Yeah, the major issue for us, or the greatest cost driver for us this year, was our increase in our health insurance cost. So this year we have two plans that we use, and one went up 9.5%, and one went almost 11%. So those are pretty significant numbers, not abnormal in terms of comparatively to other districts, but it's just a large percentage, especially when we have about $11 million in health insurance costs in the current budget. So it was about a $1.2 million increase just for health insurance alone. We do participate in health insurance consortium when we pool our purchasing power with other districts to try to help control costs. But even with that, we did have a significant increase this year. So it's with the tax levy increase being 2.41, a little bit more in foundation aid, but even with that, it's hard to close that gap. The couple other ones, not as big. I'll talk about retirement systems. We participate in two retirement systems, teachers' retirement system and then employees' retirement system. Teachers' retirement system was not that big of an impact this year, but on the employee retirement side, that percentage went up from 5.2% to 16.5%, which has increased the budget by about $145,000. Later in the budget process, we also got hit with a significant increase to our liability insurance. That went up 28%, which is not something that we thought was in the cards, or I didn't think was in the cards based on preliminary conversations with our agent. But that alone increased our liability increases from over $114,000 over the prior year. So there was two insurances that went up pretty significantly.
I know something our board asked a lot about, rightfully so, is the health insurance increase and our work as part of the consortium. Can you inform our public a little bit about that too? Like, what exactly is that? I know you sit in those meetings and kind of talk about, the number of districts involved and sort of the purpose of that, and how it's benefited the district over time, as we do try, even though the premiums go up and that's out of our control, we are part of that consortium to try to minimize that impact as best we can.
Right. So we are part of CASHIC, and that's 22 districts within the capital region that participate in that consortium. And how that helps us, that instead of Averill Park going to CDPHP by ourselves with just our plans, we pool all those plans together. So when they negotiate the contracts on behalf of the consortium, you have more buying power. So you just have better leverage in terms of your negotiations. We do meet quite frequently we have both Blue Shield or Highmark and CDPHP. Those are the two main providers within the consortium. And we meet with them regularly to look at claims experience, to try to see what's the drivers of our costs, to try to see if there's programs we can put in place or things that we can promote within our communities, such as, instead of going to the emergency room, go to urgent care or go to your primary, because that saves dollars. So there's little things like that as well we try to focus on in terms of bringing the cost down to see what is really driving our specific costs.
Great. Thank you. Thank you. For folks who pay close attention, there's been a lot of talk over the last couple of years about the foundation aid formula. Averill Park has been a hold harmless district, and there's these terms of being on formula and hold harmless. And we as a district kind of have a long history with this, and things kind of changed this year. For maybe someone who obviously is busy and unable to spend a ton of time focusing on getting in the weeds, like I know our board does, and the people who pay close attention, can you talk to folks a little bit about the whole financial aid, foundation aid, excuse me, and hold harmless and formula and all that stuff?
Sure. So foundation aid came about because years ago there was a campaign for fiscal equity. There was a lawsuit which the New York City schools didn't think they were getting their fair share of state aid. And the outcome of that case was going to be the development of a foundation aid formula. It was to kind of reset how aid was distributed to school districts. So in doing that, they came up with this formula, and it got redistributed, but there was always a phase-in approach in terms of giving out the foundation aid. Through over the years, depending on the fiscal health of the states, that's been frozen. It has been phased in the same level it was initially supposed to be. So there were multiple issues, and this is a long time coming. A couple of years ago, the state said, "Oh, we're finally going to phase it in." So they did it over a couple of years, and they got to the full phase in of the foundation aid. What happened to Averill Park specifically over that time between the foundation aid was first put into place, we became off of formula, which means that when they ran our numbers with our district in regards to our enrollment, our student needs, we became to a place where we were funded more through what we had gotten in the foundation aid formula than we were entitled to. So then they called it hold harmless. So we're not going to take away the aid that you don't deserve, but we're not going to give you any more per the formula. So that's where we found ourselves the past couple of years when they really phased in the last part of the formula. So 2 years ago, our increase was 3% in foundation aid. Last year, we were 0% on hold harmless. It was flat. There was no increase whatsoever. This budget cycle, or the last year's budget cycle, they agreed to do a study of the foundation aid formula through the Rockefeller Institute. And that was due in December of this past year. So what that did, they didn't do a whole refurbishment of the formula, but they picked out certain factors that could be updated. And their governor this year in her proposal did that. She picked up a couple of those factors and ran the foundation aid formula with those updates. What happened, actually, Averill Park benefited for that because we're no longer considered hold harmless and we're on the formula. So we saw a much larger increase in our foundation aid this year than we had any in the prior year. So we had I think it was a 5.96% increase this year compared to 0% last year. So it really benefited us, those tweaks that they made to the formula.
Excellent. Thank you. That's a great overview of kind of what's been going on and where we are here in Averill Park. Switching over to the teaching and learning side, a lot happening this year in the budget. And Matt, we want to talk to you about some of those things that are happening and that are in our proposed budget. Can you start with the process that we used in terms of additions? What were some of the wants and the needs of our administrators? We talk a lot with our 5 principals, our special ed director, our director of teacher and student support, and kind of looking at what we have in the program, what we're looking for. What are some of the things that have been identified this year, maybe even over the last few years, by the administrative team? And would you rank them or say any are more crucial than others? Like, talk to us a little bit about that, if you would.
Sure. I mean, this is a process we've done every year that I've been here. So, at least for the past 6 years, we've typically started the instructional part of the budget process by asking the building leadership and department leadership about what the needs are, typically from a staffing standpoint, and what positions we would love to add. To be completely frank, the last few years, because of what Carrie just described, we've spent less time on additions because we know we've been dealing with subtractions. And so the process hasn't been as fully formed as what we've done in the past, I guess, prior to the last couple of years, I'd say. However, there's been some real consistent positions that come up year after year after year. At the high school level, we have been really trying to get a business program started. We've not had a business program in our high school since the 2010-2011 school year. At the elementary level, we continue to struggle with the needs of our students in terms of having social workers. We did a survey a couple of years ago about student support services, and our district was the only one out of a response of over 15 schools that did not have social workers at the elementary level. Our music program has continued to struggle as our numbers have increased. Fortunately, really at all levels, we have seen a tremendous bounce back after COVID in terms of our participation rates in music. And we are struggling maintaining appropriate lesson size, ensemble sizes with the staffing that we have. And our staffing really never rebounded after the last severe budget crisis that took place in the early 2010s, but the numbers are coming back up. So we're struggling with that. Reading intervention, both at the elementary and middle school, we've talked about in previous budgets about trying to maintain a level of reading support at the elementary level. At one point, we had 3 reading teachers at each elementary school. That was supported largely through stimulus funds. When those funds went away, we had to reduce it to 2 teachers, and really have struggled holding on to 2. We're fortunate to still be at 2, but the reality is we really should be at 3. When we don't have the 3 reading teachers at those levels, we have to make sacrifices. There are students that could use reading support, particularly at the upper elementary grades, that aren't, because we have to focus on our earliest readers. It's the most critical time to give that support. So as a result, we have to make certain decisions. So these are things that are not luxury items. Business program, reading support, social workers. These are really foundational pieces in a lot of school districts that we just don't have here, and have struggled because of our budget situation to get us up to that level. That is probably something that should be appropriate for any school. So looking for opportunities to add wherever we can. I wouldn't say I would rank any of them as a 1, 2, 3. We need them all. And I think we just try to make decisions about when we can in terms of finding opportunities to bring these positions back in. But we are looking for them every year, and you're going to hear us talk about them every year until we're able to get to a point where we can bring them in.
So that's a nice segue to my next question. You mentioned the business program at the high school level and that we're bringing it back. It has been something that's been on the list for a long time. It's been a long time since we had one. We did have one here at one point. Can you talk to us a little bit about that decision in terms of how it came about and what you see for the business program going forward?
Sure. Yeah. So, I mean, the big picture is what you just said. We've not had one for a while. A school our size to not have a business program is quite unusual. Again, we did a survey of schools. We were the only school without a business program I think there was roughly 20 schools that responded to that survey, some larger, some smaller. So even smaller schools have a business program. So again, at a large view, that's something we've been wanting to do for a while. It's part of our strategic plan as well, our 5-year plan. So this is something very much been on the forefront of how do we get a business program in back into our high school. We were fortunate, kind of parallel to that budget conversation was the work done by one of our curriculum renewal teams, which is a process that we do every year. We have content area teams working examining their current curriculum, looking to analyze gaps and needs. And our technology, our 6 through 12 technology education department happened to be going through renewal the past 2 years. And one of the things they discovered is there was a possibility of, with some restructuring, to take advantage of a retirement in that program and use that opportunity to potentially bring a business teacher in. So that kind of started the ball rolling of, hey, if that could work and we could actually fill a position, but fill it with a different content area, we might have an opportunity to get a business teacher in. And through the budget process, kind of ebbed and flowed a little bit. And when it came down to it, we were fortunate to be able to create that position. We're currently going through the hiring process right now to find a teacher for that. And that person will really be tasked with starting a business program here at our high school. That program is going to likely incorporate some foundational courses, things like, accounting and management and marketing. But we also want that person to look at our internship program, school to work, some real foundational pieces. Again, things that we should be doing at a high school level, but we have always needed a person to do it. This is our opportunity to bring all those things together into a program that we think kids will really respond to. We know there's been a lot of interest in having a business program in our high school. So once we have it, our hope is that it continues to grow. And I'm talking about the need for a second business teacher in a couple of years. That would be ideal, that we see the tremendous interest in where we want to go with it at the high school.
Yeah, absolutely. It's exciting to have that back. And I think it's going to be well subscribed and popular and successful. And you're right. Hopefully we'll be adding to that as we go through this process. One big change in this budget proposal is a way to how we do special education, and going to a model that, again, to your earlier point, things that we've been trying to get to, and we kind of strategically look for opportunities to increase or improve when we have them. And in this case, the co-taught model that we're moving to in special education is one of those situations where, due to a variety of factors, we're able to kind of make this happen. Can you talk to our listeners about what is the co-taught model and how that kind of came about from a budgetary and an educational side? And then, what grades will be affected, all those type of things. Just to give us an overview of the co-taught program.
Yeah. Again, really, just like the business teacher, really excited to see this come to fruition, because we have talked about it for a few years. We know that this is the model that you strive to get to. It's the one that research says is the most effective. It's the model that is strongly encouraged by our state education department. This is really what we're aspiring to do. I think to understand co-taught, probably first talk about what we currently do, which is a consultant model. So essentially, any students at a particular grade level, so let's just say third grade, any students with an IEP would be in a classroom, and at some point during the day, largely during ELA and math time, a special education teacher would push into that classroom to work with those students with IEPs. That's a model that we've been doing here for quite some time. It allows that support, that differentiation that those students need. What integrated co-teaching allows us to transform is that special education teacher no longer pushes in. They are actually part of that instruction all day long. So there is a classroom teacher and a special education teacher that are really working together, not just for students with IEPs, but for all students. And that's the beauty of this model, is that all students benefit from having two adults in the room all day long. The planning of that classroom is shared. So really, in a perfect scenario, both teachers are teaching all the students, and you don't even really know which teacher is the classroom, which teacher is special education. You don't know which students have IEPs, because everyone is benefiting from this instruction. And there's a lot of different ways that those two teachers can design classroom instruction for the day. They could be teaching at the same time to all the kids. They could split them up. They could be parallel teaching. There's just a lot of really unique opportunities that this model will present for the adults in the room, for the professionals that are planning it, but also for the students. It allows for real, accessibility for all the kids. There's more than one adult to work with, so you have multiple access points for learning. It's highly collaborative. You've got two teachers that are planning for every day of instruction. We talked, the tagline that we use really throughout this is that it's not about yours, mine, it's ours. And that's really how we want our teams of teachers to approach this, is that this is a chance for them to collaboratively work together to meet the needs of all the kids. The exciting part of this is, obviously the model is shown to be effective. There's research behind it. And it really is a way to, I guess if we want to talk about it from a class size perspective, we have a much smaller ratio of students, right? So in classes that have, 24 students, it's now 12 students for every teacher. So we've been able to address some of our concerns that we've had around class size as well by improving that teacher-student ratio. And really getting two professionals in the room. These are two people that are trained to instruct kids. So this isn't a regular ed teacher and a special ed specialist. No, this is a special ed educator. They typically have the same foundational strengths that a classroom teacher has as well. So you're bringing these two well-qualified professionals in the room to work with all the kids. We just are so excited about what it can lead to. To answer your question, we are doing this in grades 2 through 5 to start. That typically is our largest population of students at the elementary level, where we get the most special education students. So we decided to start there. Our hope would be to trickle down to K1 when that opportunity presents itself, and also to continue to push forward into the middle school. So we are going to look for opportunities both up and down, but we are starting in grades 2 through 5. We'll continue with a consultant model at K1 and as well as in the middle school. How did this happen? Really, again, sort of a similar story with the business teacher, looking for opportunities where they presented themselves. So we had two classroom teachers that are retiring this year. We were able to take those two positions, as well as a middle school teacher who special education teacher is retiring, and move that position to the elementary. So those three positions became special education teachers, which is the amount we needed to hire to allow co-teaching to work at all 4 grade levels at all 3 elementary schools. So each grade 2, 3, 4, and 5 classroom in all 3 elementary schools will have one classroom that will be a co-taught classroom. So it took advantage of some budget opportunities to add the positions that needed to be added, and got to this model.
Great. Thank you. Thank you. Carrie, back to you. And to kind of wrap it up, we've talked a lot about the upcoming budget that the community is going to vote on May 20th. Looking past that, I know you're always doing financial projections and modeling and kind of looking in the crystal ball. Thoughts about the long-term budget outlook for school budgets sort of in general, or for Averill Park specifically? Like what's kind of out there in your world?
Yes. So it gets harder to predict future school budgets, because even if you look at our past 3 years of state aid, our foundation aid was a 3% increase one year, no increase the next year, $1 million increase this year. So it really has fluctuated quite a bit. And there really is 2 main sources of revenue that support our district, our tax levy and state aid. So really the future of state aid and how that plays out over the next couple of years is going to be the biggest driver in us developing our budgets. Our tax levy already supports a significant part of our budget. So we, and even with the tax cap, we don't, but even without that, we're not going to have giant increases in our tax levy going forward. So it really is going to be dependent on the state aid and how the state performs, the fiscal environment, in terms of how they can support schools going forward.
Yeah, that ebbing and flowing, that up and down, that unpredictability really makes it tough to budget long term. So one of the things I know that's been talked about from an advocacy level is some kind of more consistent funding or long-term funding, which would enable districts to plan a little bit more accurately, maybe. Well, thank you both again for joining us. Appreciate your time. Again, this is going to come out on May 6th. The budget vote is on Tuesday, May 20th. Polls are open from 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. And this year's vote will be in our usual place, which is the Averill Park High School Auxiliary Gym. So we encourage our community to take a look at our website. We have a budget corner, which has presentations and all the information that we could get out there. We also will have on the ballot this year our usual bus proposition. There's information about that, which we didn't get into today. And there are 3 open seats for the Board of Education. Those are 3-year terms, and there are 4 candidates running for those 3 seats. So all that voting will take place on May 20th. And again, we encourage folks to take a look at the website, participate on Meet the Candidates Night. The live stream will be up there if you're able to watch it live, or come here to the school, and certainly to vote on the 20th. So thank you very much, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thanks for tuning in. Be sure to subscribe to our podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen. See you next time on Every Student, Every Day.